Everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nikki,
And I'm Monica.
and we'll be hosting Beyond Barriers Live every Tuesdays and Thursdays. As you guys know, our mission is all about helping women go beyond barriers and rise up in their careers. Of course, no one imagined that we would face more of a challenge for us to be able to serve you and help you in this process. As you know, we are experts and thought leaders in the innovation and inclusion space and bring decades of experience in terms of career success as well as business leadership. So we really good way for us to recognize that this could happen. Maybe it's not this, but something new could happen. So how do you constantly anticipate? How do you adapt to change? And then how do you prepare yourself with a skill set, tool set, and mindset to be successful in the digital age? Many of you reached out with lots of questions and concerns about what should I be doing in terms of my career? If I'm in the job market, do I even continue looking? Is there any point in doing that? Some of you reached out and said, well, I'm concerned. What if I get laid off? What happens? What should I do to prepare? Is career advancement even possible this year? What do I need to do to still stand out and make sure I'm successful in my career? And then above all, how do I even manage day to day? Because suddenly there's just so much more pressure, right? It's you're working from home, you're homeschooling kids, you're dealing with a whole different dynamic of collaborating virtually, context that we're all adapting to. So what we are going to be sharing today is all about career do's and don'ts, things possible, and above all, take care of yourself, because this is a time where, you can't let the external environment be so destructive and damaging that self-care becomes really, really important. So we'll touch on that as well. But let's, as well as experts in a variety of areas. And we posed these questions to them and said, look, here's what our community is looking to understand. Can you provide us with your thoughts on this? What should they anticipate? What should they, how should they prepare? What's the best step for them to take? So the insights we'll be sharing today are based on all of those perspectives. So let's dive right in.
Yeah, certainly. So I'll go through these list of questions. If you all have any questions, one of the questions that we got several times is, I'm in the middle of a job search. I was interviewing, I was getting interviews. Should I just give up? And the answer is no. And speaking from just my experience, when I used to be head of diversity recruiting at a large organization for many years. And it was even during the downturn in 2008 when there was people being laid off, we were still hiring. So companies will always still be hiring critical roles. So you shouldn't give up. You should continue to apply. You should continue to look at the various different roles, and you should continue to reach out to your network. So I will tell you, there's an interesting fact. 70 to 80% to apply for jobs online, but reach out to people at those organizations that you might know, that you might be connected to, because they may know the hiring manager, they may know the recruiter, and they also know the culture and they know what's going on. So you should reach out to them as well and continue to build those networks and keep applying. I would not give up at all.
By the way, that's just as true if you are a freelancer or you are a solopreneur or frankly in business development, and you're trying to figure out, should I still be doing anything at all during this time, or is that people are just standstill? So don't stop the activity, but change your strategy, change your method, focus more on giving, focus on caring, focus on taking care of people and reaching out to them, sharing, offering to help them. Also take the time to rebuild your relationships and expand your network. This is the time to be able to do that. We all share is the pain and the struggle of going through this. So there's nothing that unites people more than shared pain. And that is something.
Advice was continue networking, looking for jobs, looking for competencies. And one really great advice is look at the companies and the organizations in the because there's lots of things that are going on with the economy, but you'll see organizations like I don't know, LinkedIn, others that
Zoom.
are still Zoom. At some of those organizations as well. And many of these companies, everybody that I talked to, they said, listen, we are still interviewing, we're still recruiting, so don't give up. The one important thing is that they may be interviewing for a job that they know that they're not going to extend an offer right now, but they want to have everybody lined up so that when the economy stabilizes and it gets back to business as sort of usual, they're going to want to be ready to extend offers right then and there. They're not going to start that job search then. So they're doing it now and they're keeping candidates warm, and you want to make sure that you are one of those in there.
And also how you show up during this
Yes.
time will speak volumes of not only your candidacy, but frankly, your character, right? So be cognizant of that. Everyone is going through a lot of pain and struggle. So be conscientious of even, what the hiring managers or the recruiters are going through. But also, if you are in business, if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about what are the consequences right now in terms opposite of what's happening with the airline or travel industry that has been really economically impacted.
Right.
But on the other hand, they're technology companies, consumer product companies, essentials, they're actually, in some ways almost going through a kind of a boom.
Right.
They are hiring very actively. Those are essential services that they have even increased the number of hires that they have.
The shipping industries, I mean, they're having
Exactly.
to,
So not only are there industries as a whole that are rising in terms of it from a different frame of reference to say, don't just go in with a fixed view of what is possible, of translating your past experience with what might be out in the job market, but think about, well, given what's happening, where is the demand? And who's looking for, what kind of skills would be valuable in this context? And then how can I serve? How can I create value? And then lead with ideas and perspectives and contribution to help those people out. And be patient throughout the process, because everyone is trying to manage through a lot. So even when you do engage with any opportunity, be patient and be helpful.
Yeah. The next question was, any tips for interviewing virtually? So many companies had moved to the initial interviews being virtual. So many of them are kind of picking that up. The interesting thing is, though, is that the actual hiring manager and some of the people who are actually doing the hiring and the offering didn't really interview virtually. By that time, candidates had come down to the final one or two, and that's when they were bringing people on campus to interview. So do know that now you're going to have people who are interviewing you who may not be very used to doing virtual interviews. So be mindful of that. But then you should also treat any virtual interview like it was an in-person, on-campus interview, because that is probably now the new wave or the new way that people are going to get hired. They're going to get offers through Zoom, through Hangouts, through you name it. There may not be a need anymore for people to actually go on site. Right. And so now 100% of the interviews will likely be virtual, opposed to getting to a certain point and then get inviting on campus. So I would say make sure that you are in a well-lit room. Make sure that you're in a quiet space or a quiet room. If you have a lot of mess going on in the backgrounds, maybe try a virtual background that you can use on Zoom or something to kind of make sure that they're focusing on you and they're not looking at stuff around your space or people walking behind you or any of that. I would say to also make sure that you do definitely need to know your research on the companies now. And recruiters now know that you can have a window open with notes and everything. So you should never not be able to answer a question because you can have an open window with your notes, bullet points, things that you want to do. So make sure that you're being concise and you're answering those questions. And you're not just talking about skills, but you're talking about competencies and making sure you're getting those across in your virtual interviews.
And your story.
Yes,
make
absolutely.
sure you have a crisp elevator pitch and your personal story that is compelling, because this is your opportunity to really make a personal connection virtually, right? It's a different context than going into an on-campus interview or an on-campus business meeting, even, where you get to use the full strength of your personality or charisma, make a personal connection, shake hands, give a hug. None of that is possible now over this virtual interaction. So you want to make sure that you can find ways to build that personal connection even through a virtual experience. So, this is the time to prepare in advance with getting your 2-minute story down pat in term that encapsulates, in fact, an even more intimate and personal connection during this time, because there's a shared context that we all share. Think of the upside. Think about the fact that you can now interview with companies literally around the world if you're willing and open to consider.
Reach out to recruiters. How do I approach them? And when I'm in my job process. So definitely reach out to them. Most of the time you're going to attach the resume, all of the stuff that you've already submitted. You want to use that opportunity to just reach out to them, be very specific that you're interested. The next question is, let's see, the other one was tips for LinkedIn headline. And I see another question up here too. One question, let's see.
Line shouldn't be your job title or your past job title. This is an opportunity. Think of it like a book caption, right? I mean, your book title, what would you want it to be? And how does that completely capture what makes you unique and who you focus on and how you create value for them? So that's an opportunity for you to get that across. So if all you have in your LinkedIn title is, let's say, manager of marketing, I mean, that's not really telling your story. No. So maybe it's, you're a change agent, maybe you're a pioneer of, new campaigns and ideas. So you want to think about what that is. Once you figure out your story, you would also know the unique things that make you stand out. And that's what you really put on your headline. In fact, we had a recent podcast episode that featured a LinkedIn expert that shared a lot of very good suggestions about what to do with your LinkedIn profile, how to set it up in a way that stands out, everything from the background image to a professional photo, your headline, content that allows you to feature all the things that are adding to your experience and value prop, and then recommendations. Yes. This will also be a great time for you to tap into your network, people you worked with before, your peers, your managers and so forth. Ask them for help. Just be open and vulnerable. Everyone is going through the same thing, so there's no reason to be shy about it. Reach out to people, ask for help, ask them for recommendations. We are all in a place where we can help each other. So gather those recommendations, strengthen your profile, and then make your profile one that attracts people to it, as opposed to you just chasing after that. And of course, a big part of LinkedIn is content creation. So if you are in the job market and you're not actively working, well, focus your time on creating content that is valuable to your target audience. So if there's a certain industry or a subject matter focus that you have, create content on that. You're going to be able to get your profile to stand out of millions of people just because of content.
Yes. The other thing I wanted to mention is that be careful with, one, don't waste the headline for your title, but then even in your job experience where you list your titles, make sure that you are describing it in terms that recruit may put the same title, but then somewhere make sure you're describing that it's human resources, or that if you're a project manager, there are tons of project managers all over the organization. So what is your specific area of expertise that you want to make sure that you're spelling there? Don't use lingo, don't use acronyms, make sure you spell them all out, because recruiters will get confused. Not just recruiters, but the system itself, the actual application database is looking
for you to also sort of show the match between a particular role of interest,
yes,
and your profile. So if you look at a certain job description that is exactly your target, find the keywords in that and make sure your bio on LinkedIn, the connection between the two.
Yeah. And then someone actually put on here, I don't believe my resume is even being seen by the company because the ATS job tracking software is like a call back. They get the automatic reply. Part of it is that a lot of the times, by the time the roles are up online, they may already be interviewing people, because 70 to 80% of jobs get filled through referrals. So don't just rely on the online job portal or their career site. Make sure that you are reaching out into your community to find out, is there anybody who works there? Second connection, first connection. Can you introduce me? Can you help me? Can you forward along my resume to the recruiters or to that group? Because it's going to get inundated. Organizations that I've worked at, I mean, we get millions. They used to get millions of resumes uploaded into the system. So they're not going to see them all. And a lot of the times it comes through somebody that you know.
One thing the current situation will reveal is, the people that have consistently built their network, built lasting relationships, have given to other people, they will definitely be able to navigate through this a lot easier, because they have a community and a tribe that's there to help them out. So if you are not in that position, if you're just starting out, or maybe you hadn't paid that much attention to your relationships before, use this as a wake-up call. There's no better time than right now. Start today and reach out, make it a daily practice of reaching out to people, connecting with them, being empathetic, offering help, offering your expertise to guide them. If nothing else, just connect with someone. Make it a practice to connect with someone every day. That's what this time is for. Use the time to connect, use the time to learn.
Yeah. So we have another question that came through. It says, what advice do you have for students and career changers who don't have a lot of real world experience right now? So that's a really good question. I think the other thing that comes to mind too is you have individuals who are changing industries. Maybe you have military people who are coming into competencies. What are the competencies you have mastered, whether it's in roles or projects or things that you've done, extracurricular activities, volunteer work? Look at, are you a good people manager? Are you a good leader? Are you a good problem solver? Those are the things you want to talk about, like competencies where it doesn't matter what the skill is. If you have the competency and the aptitude to learn it, you can. So recruiters sometimes aren't necessarily looking for just the actual skill. Now they're really trying to assess, then they know that you can basically evolve along with the organization.
Absolutely. And I think part of what Monica shared is about skills becoming obsolete very quickly. In fact, 18 months is on the outset. What we'll start to see is no matter what you're an expert in, chances are that's not going to matter very soon. So the skill that every recruiter, every leader that we've talked to, and even academic research has shown, there's one skill above all else that is going to be most valuable. That's your ability to learn. So becoming a lifelong learner, being able to adapt very quickly, learn new skills, that's actually going to be highly valuable. So you want to figure out how you can use this time to also develop that skill.
Absolutely.
And then be able to translate your story of saying, well, I was in the military, and here are the things that I have competencies in. But more importantly, here's how quickly I've learned, and here's how quickly I've adapted.
Yes.
I mean, our context has completely shifted in just the last couple of weeks. So if people are having to adapt that quickly, imagine what is ultimately more valuable, right?
Yeah.
We have another question here. Hi, Gail, which is, what advice do you have for people starting a new job while sheltering in place? How do you develop trust remotely? That's a great question. And in fact, we recently came across a few other folks in our network that just started a brand new job and had to figure out how to do their new hire orientation without anyone around and not know who is in their network, who are the key people. I mean, all the things that we had previously taken for granted, right? You start your new job, you go into campus, you're doing a meeting and their drivers as you're gauging that. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So Monica, what do you do then?
So you treat it like, one of our episodes with Kamika Dempsey, she talked about doing kind of this 90-day roadshow or this 70-day roadshow, like when you first join. And this was really thinking about when you go on campus, you have an office, you can walk the halls. You really have to do the same thing, but think about it virtually, be creative. And this is where you really do have to talk to your manager and find out who it is that you need to meet, like who are the immediate people. And then with every person that you talk to, tell them give me 2 or 3 names of who else I should meet with. And you should be scheduling virtual coffees, virtual lunches, meetings to where you can just have, get to know them, just like a get to know you meeting, so that you can have kind of an online onboarding kind of feeling. And you're getting to know everybody, but you're getting to know them virtually. You're not necessarily having to go for coffee and meet them.
Use video to full advantage.
Absolutely.
And including for lunch,
Yes.
offer it to people to say, let's have lunch on camera together. Let's have coffee together, right? The same context that you would have had in real life, translate that simply over video. So don't change the framework with which what you would have done and how you would have connected with people. Just change the modality in this. Something to think about is that, part of what typically tends to hurt people in their careers is that they get focused on doing the job instead of managing their career. It's one of the worst mistakes anyone can make if you are so buried in getting the projects done, getting the products rolled out, and you're not really thinking about managing your career. It's the same as you to really focus on managing your career and not just getting the job done. Because if you are excellent at your job and you're doing a phenomenal job of like getting the projects done, but you're all alone at home, away from your team, away from all of your cohorts in this company, who's going to really know that? So you have to go the extra mile of investing just as much time in relationship building, in connecting with people, understanding what's important to them, and really getting to know them. Doing that throughout the process is going to be really, really important.
Right. And if you continue having, I would say at least meeting one person, 2 people a day. Yes. So really thinking about your first 90 days, you should be meeting 90 people. So getting names from everybody, because any of those 90 people are going to help you get your job done. You'll find out what they do in their role, and you find out how they could be critical or how they could be a resource or how you could be a resource. So make sure that when you are meeting with them and having lunches, you're asking them, what can I do for you? What can I help you with? And, especially if there's an area or a competency you want to develop and they have a project that you can help them on, that it's just going to help you in the long run. So definitely make sure that you are, I would say, make it a goal of daily meet someone new every day.
Yeah, exactly. And then also making sure that you treat it as a must-have, not something that's optional. And this is a great time to do it because everyone is wanting to lean on someone else. Everyone is hungry for connection. They're hungry for community. So there's no better way to reach out to people than saying, hey, I'm new. I'm, just starting out. I have no idea, about how to navigate this. I could use some help. People are wanting to help. And so you have a way of building those relationships. One of the academic researchers and executive coaches that I'd interviewed, she shared an example that I thought was really profound and telling. She said, when a woman starts a new job, she just jumps right into, well, what is the job? How do I do and, perform excellent in this? How do I, make sure that I'm lining myself up for success in the long term? How do I, contrast when guys, when men start a new job, their first thing is, okay, this is the job at hand. Who do I need to get to know that can make sure that this will be successful? And how can I bring them along to help me make it successful? But how do I build the alliances first? So the focus is outward on the alliances and the network. And a lot of times for women, it tends to be inward to say, like, what do I need to do? Am I competent enough? Can I do this? What if I fail? And, how will I be judged? So learn from that experience to say, how do I actually focus outward?
And I think we have time for one more question. So I will answer this. This one says, how do you respond when the interviewer says you're overqualified? So there are situations where, you may have applied for a job, and because of the title, and maybe you didn't understand the titling or the level, of whatever that role was going to be, that is a good time to ask them to say, help me understand the hierarchy. So you may, and like I mentioned earlier, you may be a project manager, maybe with 15 years of experience. You applied for a project manager job, but it's actually for someone with 10 years of experience. So you need to try to make sure you ask them like, well, what are your levels? And in this situation, then based on my experience, what are the job titles? What are the levels that I should be looking for then and applying for? And are there any roles that are available that I can be considered for?
Mm-hmm. Excellent. As a final, this can, there's always opportunity in any crisis. So if you flip it from the fear of failure, or fear of loss, or fear of pain and suffering in this process, to what can you gain? How can you grow during this time? And, ultimately what matters. And I think a lot of us are realizing ultimately it's our family, our health, our lives that matter, and use this time to reset. This is a good opportunity to really think about, are you living a life of passion? Are you doing exactly what makes you come to life? Are you thriving in every possible way? And if not, this is sort of a universal reset, and maybe it's a cue for each of us to do the same.
Yeah, you have the time to maybe pick people's brains of jobs that you may want. You can up-level your skills, all kinds of stuff now. So this is the time, use it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And we will see you guys on Thursday.